engaging community members who normally interact with us on a regular basis. And they have come here to discuss the consumption side of the open data. So with us, Sumandro is there. He will be speaking on some of his findings on open data globally. You can come. And Satya, he will be speaking on some technology related aspects of open data. Gora Mahanti, he works a lot of open data on survey aspects on different sectors. And Viplav is he's a researcher from IBM, so he will also be covering the environment community and some, I don't remember. Okay, then you can come, Mr. Mahanti and Viplav, Satya. And Syamanus Das will be speaking about the data journalism and how open data can create a community around data journalism. Nisha Thompson is heading the data meet community formally, but she is unaware she is reaching in 10 minutes. So before that, I want to run this video just for your Sumandra will be speaking first. Please.
Hello everyone. My name is Shumandra. I work with this organization called the Center for... Is it working? It's working now, right? Yes, it's working. Hello everyone. Once again, my name is Shumandra. I work with the Center for Internet and Society. It started in 2008. The main office is in Bangalore, as many of you would know, and you have a small office in Delhi as well. My own work there focuses on data and e-governance policy at large. There are two major works that CIS and myself have done separately on open data. One is the first open data study of India that was done by CIS as a report with the Transparency and Accountability Initiative. And the second is this other study I've done, finished last year, which is which was done as part of the Open Data Research Network, which is run by the World Wide Web Foundation. What I'll do today is I'll talk about this latter study, which I finished last year. The study looked at various non-governmental research and advocacy organizations in India, and I was trying to understand how they access, use, and share government data using both the provisions of the National Data and Sharing and Accessibility Policy, NDSAP, that governs the Open Government Data Platform as well, and also earlier information data policies such as RTI, and mostly trying to understand that since we have a series of research organizations in India which work with government data over a long period of time, they have some experience doing this, how their experience of accessing and using government data change with the coming of National Data Sharing and Accessibility Policy and of course Open Government Data Platform. These are the 14 organizations I've spoken to as part of my study. They were chosen mostly in a snowballing method, which means I started to speak to the people who are quite visibly working with national scale government data. So I mostly focus on people who are interested in national scale government data because that is also what the NDSAP policy kind of, the scope of that policy is as well. Several of them are the various knowledge portals that were set up as part of the National Knowledge Commission's mandate. I'll just very quickly go to the key findings. This need not be a very long presentation. It was found, unlike, say, the developer community in India, the researcher community is still kind of stuck accessing data from the actual agencies which collect this data. The reason is not because of any other reason, but that they're accessing this data for a long time and they're somehow habituated to the thing of going to the particular ministry's website and getting the data from there. The other reason, of course, there is that most of these agencies have a kind of a specific domain interest. For example, people who work with budget data, they go to Ministry of Finance's ministry once a year, take down the data and work with it. Or people who work with, say, education data, they will go to the MHRD's website or the DICE website once a year when that data set comes out and they work with it. What happens in the process is, because they're kind of trapped in this kind of a longer habit of accessing data, is that they miss out and also complain about the fact that there is no kind of a continuity in terms of the formats that are used to publish this data by the various agencies. For example, the Economic Survey of India that comes out along with the budget document every year, in the last 2 years they have been publishing the statistical abstracts, appendixes of the Economic Survey report as PDF files, though they have published it as spreadsheet files 2 years back. So the problem is, the problem I'm trying to highlight, and which is the points in bold really, is that one of the problems for the researchers is, since not all the agencies necessarily put up the same data that they're putting up on their website also into the Open Government Data Platform, these research organizations keep going to the ministry websites and not to the government data platform. And that keeps them from having access to either kind of a consistent kind of data format, also having access to the additional value, additional services that the platform offers, such as the visualization engine. They cannot somehow, they just cannot get habituated to use these services through the portal because of that. That reason there is a major accessing problem. When it comes to understanding government data, again, most of these organizations, since they're working in that domain for quite some time now, they have a kind of a familiarity, kind of an understanding of what each of these categories are about. What are those things, what are those acronyms, and so on. What does exactly that data say, and it's easier for them to interpret. This is not exactly the case when it comes to people who are new to that data set. For someone, especially for developers, who do not have a history of working with either financial data or education data, if they're trying to work with this data, one of the key problems, along with, of course, the format issues, the license issues, and so on, is also lack of proper documentation. And this came up in various cases, especially when organizations who have a longer history of working in one domain are trying to move to another domain and cannot figure out what the data means. Third would be the problem of using government data. Licensing conditions remain a problem, more so for people who are thinking of commercial usage of the data, less so for people who are thinking of research or academic usage of the data. Because usually academic usage of the data is not seen in the same light as commercial usage of data. But more importantly, in the using case, what came up both at the research, both came up as a concern both for researchers as well as commercial users, is that the data that is coming out, both through the portal and through the ministry websites or the agency websites, is very aggregated data. It's very aggregated to a high level data. It doesn't allow one to do microanalysis. There's a problem for researchers, of course, who are trying to understand more kind of detailed patterns that the data might reveal. It's more so a problem, of course, for the programmers, because a micro level data allows them to create value closer to the level of the final user. For a person, I'm not that interested in getting numbers at the national scale, less interested in getting numbers at the state scale, more interested in getting the numbers at my neighborhood scale, right? So it depends. So someone is a researcher who is doing international comparison, national averages are good enough. That can be used. But not so for a developer who is trying to create a service that is addressing actual users' interests, right? And that remains a major using data problem. And of course, the last part is resharing of government data. And I know we have had several conversations regarding this with the DSAP project management unit, but since there are more people here, I think it's a good place to also mention this thing, that what happens is many of these non-governmental organizations, including research organizations, what they do is they take data that is available from government sources, but not available from government sources in machine-readable format. So what these organizations do is they take the data and for the research purposes, they convert the data into machine-readable formats. And that's a very important value addition to this data set that can be of much use to various other researchers and developers. What would be very nice for such NGOs to have access to is kind of a special section of the data portal where they can feed that data back and make it available for access to other people as well. Because as you see, like the many ministries who themselves have difficulty creating their own data section in their own website, many of these NGOs would not have access to the kind of technologies and resources it's needed to run a data portal. So yes, so those are 4 points just to quickly restate them. One is, of course, the question of one is question of accessing the government data, and the main problem for many of these organizations is that the same data is not available both on the ministry websites and the government data platform at the same time. If that bridge can be, so that gap can be bridged, that becomes a breeze, because then once in its government data platform, they're sure that the same data would be available in the same format the next year as well. There's someone in the government taking care of that processing of the data, and that is really an important thing for the researchers. When it comes to understanding government data, the key problem is one of documentation. When it comes to using government data, the key problem is that it's not micro-level enough. The key problem when using resharing government data is that there isn't a place or kind of a node through which the data can be reshared. And having that kind of a place would be very useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sumandro, for sharing your research findings. So let us hope that we can do something. What is there in our boundary? So what you are saying is correct, accessing and understanding, using and resharing. The aggregated data that anybody will know. When you go to the lower level and transactional data in the morning, everybody has said, and we are also looking forward to have those mission mode project data and e-Kranti data. So then I think this problem automatically gets resolved. So now I request Mr. Gora Mahanti to say his views. You want to put your back? I don't think. Otherwise you can give commentary. I will give you. So now I think.
I don't know the thing, so I can.
But you can just speak.
Yeah. See what I am saying here. He introduced me saying that.
Nice that each one of you again can go. We don't have those cards and you can introduce yourself first.
Oh, okay. Okay. My name is Shamanujit and I have been a career journalist for the last 3 years. I have changed my professions and I am into research. I do business research primarily. So I do two things. I work for a company which is into market research, business research, and consumer research, business research, as well as analytics. Analytics is the major part of our work. I myself am into, I don't make maybe money out of that, but I'm into popularizing data journalism. I teach data journalism, and I run a data journalism community called Data Journal, and we generally try to showcase all good data journalism work and thing. But here, I'm not really getting into data journalism per se because I don't think there are too many journalists. Are there anyone from media? Is there? No. So in fact, I'm not getting into data journalism, what is data journalism, how we should do, but I'm kind of making a case for data journalism. I think we should generally build the entire community. When we are doing such an initiative, in fact, I remember being associated right from day one. The day it was launched, I remember writing a log on that. And then, at different times, how many data sets are there, what is good, what is bad, and everything. So I've been a critic as well, and I tried to promote it as well. One of the things that we have discussed often is reaching out. How do we reach out? So in anything, in business or any effort that we are doing, there are actually two aspects of reaching out. One is you do business development, you do sales. The other is you do marketing. What is the difference? In one you push, you go one step at a time, and then through marketing you create an environment which creates a pool, and then the selling becomes a little easier. And naturally, in any business, any startup, so let me also consider this as a startup, you start by actually selling, and then once you reach a stage, then you go out to big bang marketing. And by marketing, most people understand, spending a lot of money. So that is not what I mean. Marketing is in whatever way creating a pool, making people interested, making the different stakeholders interested in that. So you have your immediate customers and you have the general community. So marketing does, marketing, public relation. That is what excites that. I think today, if you look at if we take the users of data, open data, as a sort of different targetable audience for this effort, I think there are a few that you can identify. The developers are there, which are already kind of sold the idea. The NGO, the activists, they have done a lot of work. Academic researchers have been doing research in business side. Corporate researchers who take decisions, politicians, long-term decisions, they are somehow tuned to data. So open data is, some of them are realizing. Then comes the general public and the guys, the marketing guys who want to. So one is the two communities that we need to reach out to. One is the marketers who have money bags. Because a lot of things I think I have heard from you also, right? You raised this in one of the forums, is that we can do anything that you say. We can create all kind of applications, all combination, whatever we can. But what the market want, what people want, we don't know. And the guys who have the money bags are the market in that. In our, I can say, at least in 2-3 cases, we have convinced guys who have come to us for exploratory research, not to initiate research and actually do. So we have given this proposition, you will get 70% of what you are asking, but your cost will be 10% of what you are willing to spend. Are you ready? Many have said no. A few have said yes. So in some cases, we completely delivered based on secondary research, basically data analysis. In one of the banks, we wanted to reach out to pockets of Islamic population. We did completely through data analysis. We didn't do any private research for that. So and the cost is a fraction of that. And so that is a mark. So this is something which data, what journalism can do. And when we talk of data, even in data journalism classes, I've seen people get immediately into tools, how to do scraping, how to do cleaning, how to do these analytic tools. But to the most of the community, what matters is actually an interesting story, and that is what normal people want. And in fact, incidentally, my first class that I took in data journalism was it was a class of Urdu journalism. And looking at their profile, and with my introduction as he has done computer science and all and journalism, so I already saw long theses, writing the Delunda journal. And then I just asked them about their interest, and somehow it came out that most of them are lovers of old Hindi music. And then I asked, and then I found that is Mohammed Rafi, who is the most popular among that group. Around 11, 12, I do not know. Then I posed them a question. Can you tell me who is the actor for whom Mohammed Rafi has sung the maximum number of songs? I'm asking you if you have. Can you guess? The discussion was like, whether it is Shami Kapoor or Dilip Kumar, okay, and a few said Rajendra Kumar. So there was a good debate. Finally, it was Shami Kapoor and Dilip Kumar that debate. Like I say, this is not great analysis. You don't require any tools. Okay. I went through a comparison of all Rafi songs. All means at least 90% and above, and it was. His name is. Sorry. How can I? Sorry. Johnny Walker. And which is, even after knowing, I don't believe this. But because those songs were not popular, we don't know. And so this is something, suddenly, so they were, this is data. It doesn't require too much of analysis. Similar story, I'll tell you. Scroll did a story, and they as well as many other media, they have done so many great analysis based stories. But this was a simple thing. This was when it was being debated whether Test cricket is being affected because of T20 and all. So what they did is they just took the aggregate score of India in the last 5 Test innings, last 5 T20 innings, and last 5 ODI innings, and that is class 3 arithmetic, by the way. So it doesn't require too much of tools and techniques. And they presented that India's aggregate of 5 innings in Test, last 5, whenever they did the story, was actually less than the total that they scored in last 5 T20 innings. See, you don't have to be a great, interested in data to appreciate this story. You know what this story wants to say. So I wanted to convey that, over a long term, we need to look beyond the immediate consumers of data, and we need to create a general interest. And then what can help is, data journalism, or doing some, even marketers telling stories through data and just, picking an interesting data to do their advertising. So these things will create an interest in the long run. And that is what I wanted to advocate. By the way, I just wanted to tell you, I think yesterday, day before, Pulitzer prize was announced, and the city, the local reporting story, which got the Pulitzer for local reporting, is a small publication called Daily Breeze, a California-based newspaper with 75,000 circulation. So that was not a typical data journalism story, in the sense there was a lot of data analyzed in that. But the basic premise of the story started with a data point, which is analyzing the salary of the individual whose corruption they expose and they own that. So I think this can create a, in a very engaging manner, data journalism and advertising can create that. I think we must somehow reach out to them. How and how, I don't think this is the forum to discuss, because there are not too many media people. So I think that's what I want.
Thanks. Thank you, Samuel. Mr. Mohanty will speak.
Forgive me, I'm not used to doing this. What I'll do today is, thanks to the OGD platform and to data.gov.in to allow us to talk a little bit about field data. This is a platform we've spent now a little over a year developing. I'll give you a very brief outline and an introduction to how this works. But I'd like to actually more talk about, rather than the platform itself, the technical aspects of it. I'd like to talk about what it enables. I'm sure all of you are familiar with these things. The rate at which mobile phones have been penetrating India and other developing countries is nothing short of amazing. This is a statistic from at least a couple of years ago, and I haven't kept up with the information. But at that time, something like 25% of India's people who were on internet were only used internet through their mobile phones. Only used internet through their mobile phones and no other access to the internet. I'm sure that number is probably close to 50%.
2014, it was around 9.6 million.
Right. And that number is growing much, much faster than any other thing. So pretty sure we are already in a mobile-driven universe. So when it comes to either collecting data or to using a platform where you can reach the most number of people, it has to go through the mobile. So we'll talk to you about exactly that, which is what field data is. And I must tell you how much I love that quote from one of the pioneers of data gathering, A.C. Nielsen. It is less expensive to actually figure out what it is that it's less expensive to gather the information than to remain in ignorance. I'll skip this part. Like, field data is a commercial organization, but we are what people are calling social entrepreneurs. I'll not go into these aspects. So what is field data? This is a map showing where our projects are located. What it is, to give away the answer, I'll go into detail later. It's an Android application. It's based on an open source project which was initially started by Google but is now run by the University of Washington. It's called Open Data Kit. It provides a framework where you can put a form on any kind of a survey form. I imagine a lot of people are researchers here, so use something called survey instruments, or at least you're familiar with the results of those. So say if you take, for example, the NSO, the people who go out and survey, or the Census of India, people who go out to practically every village in India, gather data about age, population, whatever. And this is done in a very painful manner now. They take it on reams of paper. They're getting a little bit better. They may have tablets, but it's still, they go out there, they come back, the data is again fed into the machines,
and there's a lot of scope for meaning you could say if you're filling data on paper, you could just be sitting at home in Delhi and filling those numbers here. The surveyor, the people who are interested in the survey don't necessarily know that. So I talked to you about how this kind of a platform enables, does away with a lot of those kind of problems and lets you do things that are just not possible with the standard, the paper-based method of doing data collection. So I'll emphasize to you a couple of things. You can make objective data decision based on real-time data. I'll show you exactly what I mean by real-time data. It promotes transparency, any organization. So we are actually aimed at NGOs, people who get funding from other people, from other organizations or other people. And they can demonstrate that, say I have like a project running in some 200 villages in Odisha. How do I show my funders that it's actually true? And the fact that you can show this data promotes transparency. Right now, if you're familiar with NGOs, it's all an opaque mess. What comes out in the end of the year is a glossy brochure which says, okay, this shows like children were unhappy, sad before, and now they're happy because of it. But there are no real facts to back this up. There's no real data that the funder can look at with this. And also for organizations, there are a lot of very well-meaning organizations in India. Don't mistake what I'm saying. So for them, it also provides a very, very nice platform for collecting the data, and also we provide them a website which lets them do storage, analysis, and reporting. So here is how you can get started. You can actually go to the site. It's called fielddata.org. I'll come to that later. But if you have an Android or even a Java-based phone, here is how you just go sign up on the platform. You create a project there. You create a reporting form. Reporting form is a survey instrument. It's basically a set of questions. I'll show you how you do that. You can assign those forms to field staff. They can be out in the village, and you can send them the form over the internet, over the GPRS linked data. Then the data, I'll again show you an instrument. It will make more sense when I do that. But you can either, when you're in the field, you can either send the data back immediately, or if for some reason you're in a remote area, you don't have a network connection, any standard phone will hold hundreds, if not thousands of such forms. You come back to your base station, you can also upload it that way. Another very important thing that our organization, that the people you work with are interested in, your survey forms are actually modifiable in the field. In the middle of a survey, you do a pilot and suddenly you realize, oh, I should have asked these couple other questions. With paper forms, that's just not possible. You can't send out another set of people with those two questions. Here you just send out a new form to the phone. And there's a lot of other things that you can do. So let's get to the year. So this is sort of, I'm not sure how visible this is. Let me just maybe skip to the thing. What you're seeing, So what you're seeing here is like a certain organization, and it has different survey instruments. Each one of these is a survey instrument. Here is how you go about preparing a survey instrument. If you can see, you can choose different types of forms, different types of questions. So say I want a text field or an integer field. So say if I'm asking someone's age, I want an integer field. If I'm asking someone's name, I need a text field. And you can do all kinds of things, date and time, location. Location is the actual GPS location from the phone. That's very, very important because it proves that the guy is actually out there. He's not sitting here in Delhi. You can even record audio and video and take photographs. So you can go about preparing. Let me see how much detail I have in here. I can do, if people are interested, I can do a demo of the site later on. Let's go ahead. So basically you can have any kind of questions that you can do with the paper form. So you can ask a name and an age, and you can do interesting things that are not easily possible in paper. So for example, if you were looking at children at a certain age, and depending on what the age is, you want to ask a different set of questions. So the form will automatically branch. If the child is of this age, it will ask that question, otherwise it will ask another set of questions. You can have loops with the multiple children in the household, all of whom need some data about them. You can go through however many children there are. This is a result of one such survey, so a few of the results. As you can see, the GPS location is actually available there. There's a photograph. If you were on the website, we could actually click on this and see it. Here, for example, is a demo that we do for people. This is a map of Delhi, and I've clicked on one of these instances and it shows me a photo that is attached to the particular instance. So the demo that we do for people is, say, suppose I'm sitting with a minister who has funded a project to build a well in some village in India. The guy says, I built the well, now I need to be paid. So someone who is actually in the village can send a photograph that shows up in real time and can show, for example, look, the well is broken, it's unusable. So the minister sitting in his office in Delhi can have real-time information on these kind of things.
This can work for both the parties, that's what you're saying? Means the guy who is complaining.
Sorry, I don't follow.
The guy who is complaining about the well is not okay, and the guy who's gone
Yeah,
get
right.
paid.
Right.
Says the well is done.
So the honest person can actually prove that I've done this. One of our clients, we didn't actually get that project, but was the National Rural Road Development Agency. So a road is supposed to have been built in some village. You can do many things with it. You can take a picture of the beginning of the road and the end of the road. And you can actually travel along the road. So the GPS locations will be mapped out and the minister can see, okay, here is the road, it's there, it really actually exists, someone drove there. So yes, I'm not saying it's also a tool for honest people to prove their honesty. It's not. So then we can get various kinds of statistics and all. I think I'll stop here largely. So we are now 78 organizations, and I think that this number is like well out of date. We should have about 1 million records now. We're mainly in India and Africa at the moment, also in Mexico, one project in Mexico. I think the important thing that I want to stress is the amazing thing that people are doing with this. Again, we are technologists. We built this platform, we're interested in the technology. But what it enables is well beyond even what we could imagine doing that. Some people are using this, for example, in Africa, they're using it to do follow-ups with people, with mothers who have just had kids, to follow up with them that the kids are getting proper care, so they also do, I think, I forget what is the main target, it's either HIV or TB, to make sure they're continuing to take their continued doses of medicines. They get reminders and SMS. SMS is a little bit different from this platform, but that's sort of what it is. And there's really no limit to this, what you can do with it, because you have a completely flexible thing you can do that you can tailor to your own needs. Okay. I'll skip the roadmap, I'll just leave this also, it's just about who we are. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. I'm also available if you'd like to talk to me later. I will also remind you that the platform is free for basic users. You can go and start your own account. You can do, so Google's examples also include like a daily tracking of your own expenses. I spent 50 rupees on this auto. So there's a form that does that for you. There's a form for like people who survey birds. Take a picture of the bird, record its call, someone will identify the bird for you. So all kinds of things are possible. I will encourage you to go to fielddata.org and there is the link out there. And you'll be able to go install the app for yourself if you have an Android phone. Thank you.
Lisa?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you to the data.gov.in team. As always, you brought a really great group of people together. I'm Nisha Thompson. I'm based out of Bangalore, and I work with a group called DataMeet. And I think we've covered a lot of the basics of data and what, it can do and who is really interested in it. But I want to talk about a little bit about the current ecosystem that data.gov.in is working in, as well as the people here and outside. A little bit about. In DataMeet, we really care about creating spaces and opportunities for people to share and talk about data. There's a lean group of over 1,000 people across the country. It's India only. We have 5 city chapters. We've done 8 open data camps in 3 cities. We've done a lot of data skill workshops. We have working groups on transport data, looking at what data do people want? Does it exist? If it doesn't exist, who has it? I think a lot of the open data movement is about that data is not something owned by an individual that is shared. It's something that other people can use. It's like a common. And that is what we want to stress, and that the data.gov.in team has been able to also bring us in on various components and saying, here's the data, it's a common, use it, go forward. So I think we've kind of covered this, but I wanted to kind of stress that the government of India is the largest collector of data, and they have an incredible amount of data that touches lives individually for everyone. So this initiative is really important because it actually can affect everybody in the country, and we should be looking at how this data can be used to optimize certain things and interact with democratic institutions better. That's why people need open data, open government data in particular. And that's why people come to things like DataMeet. They come to these types of events because they want to pursue that idea, that we want to interact with government institutions through their data practices, through their information systems. These are the kind of people who are on DataMeet. Pretty much everyone we've already covered. Entrepreneurs, researchers, CSOs, people who work on the ground, government people, citizens. They all have a common understanding of they're looking to answer a question. We get a lot of very specific questions on DataMeet. I want to know, where this district actually is and what are their natural resources in this district. I want pin code shapes so I can create a service. I want very specific things because I want to do a very particular thing. And I can't find the information that I need. I know someone has it, but I don't know where it is. And that seems to be a common theme on whoever wants or asks for data on DataMeet and outside. So primarily what we're looking at is people want resource data because they want to know, that's not me, I don't think. Okay. They want to create tools or apps or ways to understand the resource. I did a lot of work with water and sanitation, and I think people just wanted to know, what is the status of it? How much water do we actually have? Every year around this time, you get a story in the newspaper, oh, we're running out of water. How much water is left? Where is it coming from? All these things are what people actually want to know. And they want to be able to understand this data in a form that can be, delivered to them in bits and pieces so that they can actually make sense of what they're dealing with. We did an open data camp last month on education, and people were really interested in finding out what is the status of schools, what is the status of people being educated in this country. And it's because they want to find out what is going on so they can actually make tools and maps and things so that they can actually find schools, find out what the statuses of these places are, where can they improve things, where can they participate, where should they send their kid to school, all these types of questions. Just to kind of talk about what we tend to discuss is that the archive is quite huge. It's over 1,000, it's more than this at this point. And there's some 200 to 700 threads that talk about maps, that talk about geospatial data, because people want that information, because it helps them build things for the future and to make sense of the data that's coming in. People can understand data when it's in a location they can comprehend. in my city, in my district, in my state. And I think that's one of the things that a group like this can really move forward, is understanding, what geospatially we should be putting, mapping, giving to other people. I think this has been said, we need more local data, we need more real-time data like weather, transport. These data sets are live, they can be accessed, they can create ecosystems of their own. And that's kind of what we want to continuously do, is allow people to take data and create more ecosystems on their own to their natural end. Not necessarily forcing people to continuously make apps that they're not really sure who's the audience for, but to continuously move things in a dynamic way, which a lot of these resources, when they are brought to their true potential, can do. These are things that people want because they boost their entrepreneurial abilities and their ability to understand their surroundings. And I think in a place like India, that's really what people are trying to find out. What's going on around me? Where can I interact with it? I just want to close by saying that the more data that people make available, even if it's not government data, the more that we can continue to work together and create better data sets in the future. Using data means that it gets better, and it doesn't have to sit in files and people question it. It's more alive. It's a thing that can be interacted with. So I want to thank the Data.gov team for allowing this to happen, and would like to say that we should continue to have these conversations offline and online so that we can make data more real. Thank you.
Biplab?
Good afternoon, everyone. So I am Biplab Srivastava from IBM Research, and I've been interacting with open data, data.gov.in for the past 2-3 years, and been involved in sustainability projects for over 5 years. So I think that there is, we have reached the first stage of open data movement in India, and I'll explain what I mean by that. And then we also have a challenge, okay? So the first phase, or the first stage, is that now we have some reasonable data, and the non-trivial insights we have started to get, okay? So we are at the stage of like descriptive. We can explain things, okay? Which is good. But I think after that, right, people just don't want to understand, they want to act. And this is what is happening around the world with open data movement. People are asking, let's get to the next stage of acting on the data that we have. And this is where our challenge is. So I will give an example, and I have a few recommendations. So the example which I have is, for example, crime, right? All kinds of crime which have happened. Now, I can understand what is happening, and I'll just show one of the many apps have been done, so I can show one of the apps that we have done here. But I just want to understand right? The decisions which I take, buying a house, going to school, on my job movement, right? Relocation to cities. So I need to act on that, right? And this data better be relevant for it. Similarly, another thing that we have been talking in the country is the importance of environment. Okay. Now, this people are saying that 3 years of your life is gone if you live in Delhi, right? Those kind of statistics. Now, what should I do? I mean, I don't want all this data. I mean, go away, right? So, how can this kind of information become relevant? Okay. So we need. So the challenge we have is that either stay at level 1 or go to the next level, right? Where it is part of our action, day-to-day action. Okay. So, what I have discussed with the data.gov.in team, and I'm actually requesting to the community is, we should volunteer to take the current existing data set, identify themes, like whether it is in environment, whether it is in crime, whether it is in women health or whatever, right? And think about what decisions can people take, and then help organize the information so that people can make collectively more progress. You know, students will do student projects every year. Okay, researchers will write papers, right? Whether they are useful or relevant or whatever. Similarly, there are people who are thinking of new ideas. Okay, the problem is everyone is redoing the low-hanging fruits. Everyone is doing data cleaning. Everyone is trying to figure out how many districts are there in the country, right? So we are just being at the low level, and it is time now that we build assets over which we can climb up and up, right? So we have the data, we need to go for deeper semantics. Then we have to think about use cases, right, in which we should be using the data. So I'll give an example of environment, okay, but this need not be there, and we can go into any other area. And I'm requesting people to kind of come forward and suggest. So in the environment, very simple thing, right? If I want to go and take a dip in the river, right? And if you're a Hindu and part of your various rituals, you will be going to various rivers, right? Connect people to the Ganga cleaning mission or the air pollution thing, right? To children going to school. So those decisions, connect them, and then what needs to be done, okay? And it should be the case that various information, you will be surprised that over 30 years, water quality data has been collected in this country, right? There is a huge problem of who sees the data, where it is lying, right? States, they're consumers. Districts, they're consumers. Producers, there is a Central Water Commission. But people should be seeing it eventually because it has better be relevant, otherwise it's useless. Okay? So we need to drive on themes, and I think there is a community portal on the side. But what I'm suggesting is taking the next step of action, okay, and breaking this theme along action, and then what are some of the open problems? Who are the users of insight? What action will they take? So I'll give a few examples of environment, right? One example is, of course, I told you where I want to take bath, right? And this could be when someone is born, someone has died, someone is doing something, right? In Hindu ritual, and you're taking care. Second is, you want to save dolphins. What should you do? Okay? Or you want to promote livelihood, but you can't close all the tanneries in a place, right? Knee-jerk reaction actually shows your frustration that you're not able to act with the data that you need, right? Similarly, all these diesel vehicles, right, older than 15 years, it's a knee-jerk reaction because we don't have the data. A person who is owning his vehicle and doing everything with the pollution, and he is maintaining it, right? Why are you penalizing it, right? So, organizing information and researchers, whatever results they're doing, better make it relevant to the problem that people are asking for. Similarly, analytics, user interfaces, apps, right? Connect it. So I'm suggesting people volunteer to lead certain communities and actually engage around themes so that we can be sure about consumption. And the last thing I have for this event also is that I think we should flip the event with a session on consumers in the beginning of the morning and then the production of the data. Because I would argue, if consumers are not there, then there is nothing about production. Thank you. I will just show a last quick small app here. Okay, and this is my point about leading to decisions. So what I'm just showing you is there's so much of good data we have in data.gov.in platform. We just need to understand its full value and also connect it to action. So this visualization which I'm showing you is nowhere near the action part of it, right? But we are, of course, users of this data and many more. We want to help supplement with new data. What we're trying to show you is all the cities we have in the country, right, and the districts. Various kind of crime is getting reported, and when someone wants to take a decision, right, should I be living in Ghaziabad or Noida, or New Delhi, or Gurgaon? Right, very simple question. Can you help figure that out? So this is what it is showing is, and then the richness of the data is, we have about close to 750 cities, districts actually, in the data set that I'm referring to. We have 30 crime categories. Everything that you may want to dive, drill down and dive, right? And what you can do is you can look at under all the 30 categories I was telling you about, select your favorite city, right? And you may actually say you want to be in Ghaziabad or not. Okay. Or anyway, like Guwahati city, right? And the various kind of years that we have the data for. The interesting part is, a lot of the complexity we have about data inaccuracy, right, we have hidden. Okay, so things where we don't have missing data, how do you handle that? Because people are not interested. Either you show me what is relevant or not. So we various technical issues about missing data, semantic issues, right, solve them behind the picture and come up with high quality applications. So this is still a work in progress. I just wanted to say that I'm not just preaching, we're not just preaching, but we are doing some things also, and we hope that together, right, we really make concrete things. So 2.5 years, we have brought the data portal, but I think the next 2.5 years, right, we should deliver on not just the government leadership, but I think as a community, right, we should deliver on high quality, actionable things. Thank you.
So I think this is the application they have developed during that last hackathon. Just now. Okay, sorry.
For this way. Thank you.
So, Satya?
Yeah.
If we are concluding then?
Yeah.
No, I just joking.
Yeah. So can I have a show of hands? How many students are here? You are always. I'm also so and so. Yeah. So okay. And how many of you like generalist? Anyone? No one is there, right? No. Abhishek, there was one. Okay. So my association with DataGo has been really good, and I've seen in the last 3 years, since the time I was actually checking out the snapshots in Internet Archive. Actually, I can show one or two, so even which will make you feel wow. We have come a long way since what it used to be. Yeah. So that is something I think, yes, definitely it has come a long way, right? And my interest is mostly in people, community, and technology. These three things is of my interest, and open data and data as such falls in that space. So that's what brought me to open data. Yeah. So the community has definitely been growing at a really very rapid pace, as Nisha has described, as well as the portal from the point of view of its development. A lot of. So this is the last snap which we have of almost 2 years, like 2002. The Internet Archive, yeah, there is some 1 or 2 bugs in there. Yeah, no. Take it. It's okay. Yeah. So what I've seen is people used to talk about there is no people now. Like I see now enough student interest and community interest. People coming out, talking, asking the right questions. That's one thing which I always try to teach students saying that we need to ask the right questions for the story or whatever we want to say. So this is something which was the version 1 of beta something, if I can recall. A very old one, yeah. Yeah. So then we used to shout at it and say that, oh, where is the API, where is this, where is that, yeah. So, remember, yeah. So the overall the story is like, we are doing good, and the interaction and the support from there's a really